Tragedy in Atlanta, 2 teens gunned down. Atlanta, a city known for its vibrant culture and southern charm, found itself grappling with a horrific tragedy on July 2, 2024. Gunshots rang through the Sparks Apartments complex just after midnight. 2 young boys, Layman Freeman, 13, and Jacody Davis, 12, lay dead. Another child, 11-year-old Dontavius Davis, was wounded. This wasn't just another shooting, it was a brutal act of gang violence that shook the city to its core. The victims were caught in a crossfire, their lives tragically cut short. They were simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. The incident sent shockwaves through the community, leaving residents terrified and heartbroken. This horrific act of violence served as a stark reminder of the pervasive gang problem plaguing Atlanta. It ignited a firestorm of outrage and demands for justice. City officials, community leaders, and residents alike came together, united in their grief and determination to find answers. This tragedy would not be ignored. It demanded attention and action. It forced Atlanta to confront the harsh realities of gang violence and its devastating impact on innocent lives. At the heart of this tragedy lay a bitter rivalry between 2 notorious Atlanta gangs, 4PF, Four Pockets Full, and OMF, Only My Family. 4PF, once the name of rapper Lil Baby's record label, had become synonymous with the streets. OMF, a subset of the infamous Goodfellas gang, had a long and bloody history in the city. The feud between these 2 gangs was not new. It had been simmering for years, fueled by a toxic mix of territory disputes, drug trade, and revenge. Each side sought dominance, their rivalry marked by violence and bloodshed. The roots of this conflict ran deep, tracing back to the 2021 murder of Marcus Big Mark Holland, a known associate of 4PF. His death ignited a cycle of retaliation, with each act of violence fueling the other side's thirst for revenge. The Sparks Apartments shooting was a terrifying escalation, a grim testament to the ruthlessness of this gang war. It thrust their deadly feud into the spotlight, forcing Atlanta to confront the dark underbelly of its streets. The city braced itself, knowing that this was likely not the end. As details of the shooting emerged, a name familiar to many surfaced in connection with the violence Lil Baby, the Atlanta-born rapper who had risen from the streets to global fame. While Lil Baby had publicly distanced himself from gang life, his past association with 4PF continued to cast a shadow. In May 2024, Lil Baby filmed a music video on Verbena Street, NW, an area known to be OMF territory. The shoot ended in gunfire, with 3 men shot and wounded. Though Lil Baby escaped unharmed, the incident significantly escalated tensions between the rival gangs. Police pointed to this event as a turning point, accusing Lil Baby of unintentionally fueling the flames of the gang war. His presence in OMF territory, whether intentional or not, was seen as a provocation, a disrespect that demanded a violent response. Atlanta Police Department Homicide Commander Ralph Woolfolk didn't mince words, calling Lil Baby's actions cowardly and directly linking them to the tragic deaths of the 2 teenagers. Though not directly involved in the shooting, Lil Baby found himself entangled in the narrative, his name forever linked to the tragedy. The Atlanta Police Department wasted no time launching a full-scale investigation into the Sparks Apartments shooting. Determined to bring the perpetrators to justice, they dedicated significant resources to solving the case. The pressure was on. The city demanded answers. Through meticulous detective work, forensic analysis, and the use of confidential informants, investigators began to piece together the events leading up to the shooting. They uncovered a planned retaliation, orchestrated by incarcerated OMF leader Keontae Midnight Sanders. Their investigation led to the arrest of 7 individuals connected to the shooting, all confirmed members of the OMF gang. Among those apprehended was Dekeithian Jamin Mobley, who, according to police, had targeted the Sparks Apartments complex with the intent to harm 4PF associates. Tragically, he was unaware that his intended victims were innocent children. The police investigation, though successful in apprehending suspects, provided little solace to a grieving community. The damage was done. 2 young lives were gone, and the city of Atlanta was left to grapple with the devastating consequences of gang violence. The Sparks Apartments shooting sent shockwaves through Atlanta, igniting a wave of outrage and despair. The community, already grappling with the pervasive issue of gang violence, was left reeling from the senseless loss of young lives. Protests erupted across the city, with residents demanding action from city officials and law enforcement. They marched through the streets, their voices united in a chorus of pain, anger, and frustration. They called for an end to the violence, for justice for the victims, and for a safer city for their children. Community leaders, activists, and residents alike came together to address the root causes of gang violence, poverty, lack of opportunity, and a systemic cycle of despair. They organized peace rallies, youth outreach programs, and support groups for families affected by gang violence. The shooting served as a wake-up call, a stark reminder that gang violence was not someone else's problem. It was a community crisis that demanded a collective response. Atlanta, a city known for its resilience and spirit, resolved to confront this challenge head-on. In the wake of the Sparks Apartments shooting, law enforcement agencies across Atlanta faced mounting pressure to address the city's escalating gang violence. The police department vowed to crack down on gang activity, pledging to increase patrols and pursue harsher penalties for gang-related crimes. The Georgia statewide gang prosecution unit ramped up its efforts. They conducted raids, made arrests, and seized weapons and drugs. Despite these efforts, a sense of unease lingered. Many questioned whether these measures were enough to address the deeply rooted issues fueling gang violence. They argued for a more holistic approach, addressing social and economic disparities. The debate over the most effective way to combat gang violence continued. The tragic events surrounding the Sparks Apartments shooting served as a stark reminder of the vicious cycle of violence that plagued communities across America. It highlighted the devastating impact of gang culture, the allure of belonging, the false promises of power and respect, and the ultimately destructive consequences. Young people, often from disadvantaged backgrounds, found themselves drawn to gangs seeking a sense of community, protection, and identity. They were lured in with promises of easy money, status, and a sense of belonging, unaware of the dangerous path they were embarking upon. This cycle of violence, once set in motion, seemed almost impossible to break. Retaliation begot retaliation, each act of violence fueling the other side's thirst for revenge. The streets became a battleground with innocent lives caught in the crossfire. The Sparks Apartments shooting was not an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a much larger problem, a societal ill that demanded attention, resources, and a collective commitment to finding solutions. Breaking the cycle of violence required a multi-pronged approach, one that addressed the root causes of gang involvement while also holding perpetrators accountable for their actions. In the aftermath of the Sparks Apartments shooting, grief and determination washed over Atlanta. The city, known for its resilience, refused to let this tragedy define it. Instead, it became a catalyst for change. Community leaders and residents united to demand a safer city. They organized peace marches, candlelight vigils, and community dialogues for peace. They knew breaking the cycle of violence required collective effort. It required investing in education, economic opportunities, and mental health resources, fostering hope for young people at risk. The journey would be long, but Atlanta's spirit remained strong. They aimed to prevent future tragedies, ensuring every child could thrive and making Atlanta's streets safe for all.